Hey group, it's Ben, and I'm back with another Bible study. I was not expecting to come back to the Bible this fast. I do it whenever he puts it on me, though, so that's what I'm going to do today. I was given a word this morning, and that word has led me here. We're going to talk about it in a second, but first I'm going to give my standard disclaimer. If you are not secure in your faith, this is probably not the place for you. If you're questioning your faith and you want more answers, stick around. This might be the place for you. But if you have no room for questioning in your faith, you probably don't need to be here. I am very secure in my own faith. I believe in God, the God of the Bible, but I don't believe that the Bible is infallible. I believe it is a collection of works by men that has been proven true, accurate in most cases. There are things that are absolutely been changed. There are things that have been added, things that have been removed by men to serve agendas. So I do not believe that the Bible is the infallible word of God, but I do believe that God's message has survived despite the best efforts of men. And one of the ways that he does that is through this book right here. But this is not the only book of truth out there, and there's not only one truth. If that makes you uncomfortable, you don't need to hang around, because I will make you very uncomfortable. I talk about what God says in this book. What he says plain out, we're going to talk about plain out. And so that brings me to my word today. I was watching the AJ show, right? I do that when I drink my coffee. I've got a gaming channel where I do Minecraft stuff, and I don't really promote it. I just want to see how the algorithm works over there with that. And so I do those recordings in the morning while I drink my coffee and those type of things before I walk my dog. I'm watching the AJ show this morning, and he has MTG on, and they get to talking about a subject. I cannot say his name, I cannot say her name, and I can't just outright talk about the subject, right? But they are discussing a law that she is going to get with her people about writing as soon as she gets back from this interview. Now, this interview was yesterday. I watched yesterday's show this morning because I see AJ is a good place to catch stuff right when it first happens, because he is a great NE. He grabs all the possibilities and pulls them in. And so it's a good place to get the NE. He's not very heavy on the facts and the supporting data sometimes. Sometimes. A lot of the times he is correct. Most of the time he is source. But sometimes he misses it. I say all that just to say that they were talking about this law that she was like, yeah, I'll get on board. I'll talk with people and we'll see about doing that. And that is to withdraw federal funds from any school that teaches the sexual indoctrination that is currently being debated, well, just got settled out in Florida. There is no reason whatsoever for a kid in kindergarten to be indoctrinated. I speak with a bit of authority on that, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But that brought me to the word that I received. If you teach a child when he is young, and when he is old, he shall not depart from it. And so I got the word, and I'm like, all right, I know I've read it before, but I haven't spent the time in it like I should. So I came and looked it up, and we wound up in Proverbs. Proverbs 22, to be specific, but it extends, because the book of Proverbs is a collection of the wisdom of Solomon. There are over 3,000 individual sayings in this book. He has over 1,000 songs. I think it's 1,005 is in the Psalms, right? And so one of the most prolific artistic people in history, known as one of the most intelligent and wise people ever, and also one of God's highly favored children. This was the son of David. This was the epitome of the Israeli kingdom. This is how it should have been, right? This was just after David and before all the infighting began. Solomon was the epitome of the kingdom. And these are his wisdom sayings. And these things all are true. Whether you believe them or not, they are all true things. And we're going to go through a significant number of them today. This is a collection of 30 things. It starts before the collection, but it runs through the entire collection. We're going to go through the entire collection. So this is going to be a little while. Y'all buckle up. We're going to stop and talk about the things that we need to talk about as we go along. And part of this is going to be some of my testimony. Y'all are going to get to hear a little bit more about Pitt than you may want to today. So if you are somebody who knows me personally, you might want to click off of this. Like, not a lot of people I know watch me because I don't promote myself. I don't promote anything I do to any of the people that know me, because in order to keep things honest and open and do the things that I do, to be honest with y'all, I have to think that nobody that knows me is watching it, because then my inferiors start taking over. So I assume that nobody's watching, but there will be things in here that people that know me don't want to see. So go ahead and click out. All right, Proverbs 22. This is basic wisdom for life. We're going to 22 to 24 is where we're going to go today. We could run through the entirety of the book, but that would take a long time. Everything in this book is worth reading. That is for this particular book, and it is for the entire book. All of it is worth reading, and it is all worth taking the time to digest and sit on and meditate about, and to get an answer for yourself about from God. I'm going to tell you the things that He has told me as I've gone through Proverbs, and we're just going to talk about it. So let's go. A good name. And this is Proverbs 22. We're starting right at the top. A good name is more desirable than riches, and favor is better than gold. For the rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is the maker of them all. If you don't stand for what you say, then you are less than nothing in the eyes of men and God. You can claim whatever you want out loud in public, but if you do not live it in your life, you are a hypocrite. Hypocrisy is one of my touch points. It's one of the reasons I don't associate with a lot of people in real life. Because if I did, then I would be hypocrisy. I would be hypocrisy. I would be the hypocritical one if I hung out with the people that are antithetical to the way that I want to live my life. And so I don't. And then a good name is better than riches. If you're breaking out of your word, if you're making promises that you don't keep, if you are doing any of these things, you are going to be completely destroyed. You will never be successful in the long run. It just won't. Like, I say that, and then we have people like Bill, right? Billy Boy. Definitely not a good guy. We have people like Zuckerberg. Definitely not a good guy. They're doing things that are antithetical to freedom. They're doing things that are antithetical to life and happiness. But they seem to be prospering. But they got it coming. It's coming. All right, let's roll on. This is going to take a while, so I'm going to try and roll through it. But I'm trying to dispense a little bit of wisdom as we go along, because we don't really take the time in Proverbs like we should. People go on a Sunday and they run through it as fast as they can. Like, the pastor is just bam, 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 because you got a time slot to hit. I've got a time slot to hit too, but I'm going to try and take my time and at least talk about these things. The prudent see danger and take cover, but the simple keep going and suffer the consequences. If you see what's coming, and that's why I'm in this video, is because I see what's coming. I did the NE this morning, and now I'm telling you, this is what's coming. Is the perversion of everything that we hold dear is it's opening up before our eyes right now. It is. The reward is of humility and fear of the Lord are wealth and honor and life. Wealth does not mean money. Keep that in mind. Wealth can mean money. Being wealthy is a good thing. It is not something that is inherently bad. But wealth can corrupt you faster than anything else. The love of money is the root of all evil. And it's the desire for having all of the things that cause people to fall. Thorns and snares lie in the path of the perverse, and he who guards his soul strays far from them. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That is true. What you set for your children right now is what they will live. I made very intentional choices in which family I got, like my kids got to hang around. And some of the family that were actually good people came attached with people that weren't. And so, in order to get that completely out of my children's life, I made the sacrifice to remove that. Right? I didn't allow the negativity. I didn't allow the perversion and the racism and the hostility and the aggression and the things that I grew up with. I did not allow them around my kids. My kids have never seen me raise my voice to my wife. They have seen us argue, but they've never seen me raise my voice to my wife, much less my hand. They have never seen me, like, I've smoked weed most of my children's life. I've been injured for the last 10 years, right? Before that, I smoked it recreationally. And they've never seen me intoxicated to the point where I'm falling over. Maybe once or twice, and that was from alcohol. Because every once in a while, you just got to let loose, and that's okay too. But to live inside of that is set an example for the children. And that is where the problem is. Like until recently, like I smoked my kids' whole lives basically. And yet they never knew until like 2 years ago. They never knew that I smoked weed because I didn't make it a lifestyle. It's something that I need to function. So I do it discreetly. I'm not out in the open. Everybody that I know knows that I smoke. My mama knows I smoke. My daddy knows I smoke. Like everybody knows I smoke, but no, hardly anybody sees me smoke. All right, we're gonna move on from that part. But the raising up the kids is an important thing. And here's where my part comes in because y'all have heard part of my testimony before. Like I've recorded it before. You may not have heard it before, but I was molested as a child. I don't remember how old I was when I was molested, but I don't remember a point in my life where sexuality and sexual desires and things was not a part of it. I don't. My first memory ever is the day I learned to walk on my own. I remember that because I was in my grandmother's house and I walked in and she had these mirrors all over the wall. My dad and my mom was sitting right there in front of these mirrors. And they said, "Oh my God, he's walking." And then I fell down. And that's all I remember. But that is my only memory of my parents together. Oh, they divorced when I was 2, and I was raised in a broken home. My mom had a rough time of it. My dad did not take responsibility. He was a child, like basically, and he was a drug runner. He was into the criminal lifestyle, and that's why my mama left him was because he was into that, and he resented that, and so he didn't give her any money, and he didn't give her any support. And then he went to jail, and he couldn't give her any money or support. Meanwhile, I'm out there idolizing this man because that's my dad, right? And one of the things, like he tells the story about one of the first ass whoopings that I ever got was because I asked my aunt if she wanted to, "Hey baby, you want a foo-foo?" I was just over 2, or it might have been my second birthday, right? And like he tells that story like it's the funniest shit ever. But my entire life, sex was part of it. I was brought up. Like I don't remember learning about sex any more than I remember learning about guns. It was just a part of life. This is part of the word that was given to me, and that's why I'm spending so much time on it. So I was molested. I don't remember how old it was, but I remember the action. Like I remember the act. I remember who it was. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember the physicality of it. But that wasn't my only experience as a child. I am one of those kids that I am so fearful for because sex was normalized for me. And the only thing that I thought was wrong with it was getting caught, right? My first consensual sexual act, I was 5 years old. And people would be like, "What? That's insane." But she was 4, and it was her idea. And that's real stuff right there. And like, I don't know her last name, but her first name was Keisha. And Keisha, if you ever see this, I am so sorry that we went through that. because I know it fucked me up. And I know that it probably did you too. And I am sorry for that. And that is why I'm making this stand now. But that wasn't the end of it either. I had, by the time I was 7, I had had 5 sexual partners. By the time I was 10, there were 10 of them. And by the time I was 13, there were 15 of them. I was very prolific, but I was a predator. By the time I was 13, I had been a predator. I had been someone who seeked out the weak, right? The ones who were isolated and alone and didn't feel accepted. I knew how to play into that. By the time I was 13, I was an expert at that. But I had no idea that that was wrong because I was raised up in the way that that was a normal thing. And the only thing wrong with it was getting caught. And that is real. That is what I grew up in. By the time I realized that I was a predator and what that meant, like, I've never had a sexual desire for a child, ever. That was never the thing. But when I was that age, I was preying upon those my age. And so not all of the people that I had sex with were my age or younger. Some of them were older, and some of them were non-consensual besides the first one. It's a very complicated thing, but I didn't, even the things that were non-consensual, I didn't see as wrong. I didn't see that because I was raised in the wrong way. And so that is why this bill in Florida means so much to me. Because if you raise up a child, that is the way they will go. And it wasn't until I went to live with my grandma that I even realized what was wrong. Like, I never even realized. Like, I didn't realize what the wrong was. I thought the wrong was getting caught. I didn't think the wrong was the act. And there's a lot of people out there like that. There are a lot of people that don't realize that the wrong is the act. And this indoctrination that they're trying to put on these kids in the schools is absolutely going to ruin their lives. It is a ruination of your life. Take that from me. The sexualization of children ends badly. I was a terrible person. I was a horrible person. I was the type of person that would hit people walking down the road just for the hell of it, because I had so much pent up rage and didn't understand why. I had substance abuse problems because I bottled things up and I didn't understand why. Because if you raise up a child in the way they should go, then they will not depart from it. You know how hard it is to depart from it when you are raised up the wrong way? Like, when you don't know, do you know how hard it is to change that? And if you've done that, then bless you. And I can testify that that is hard and it is valid. And what you went through, you needed, like, you agreed to every trial before you came here. Don't ever get that twisted. And I'm speaking from someone who just told you what happened to me. I agreed to these things so that my soul could learn these things. And they have been rough lessons, very rough lessons, most of them. But I've got great blessings from learning those lessons. All right, we're going to get back to the word now. That is the part that I need to talk about. Because this bill that she's talking about to pull this federal funding from these schools that want to push this agenda, I am 100% on board. I am 100% on board with the firing and blacklisting of any teacher who does that. That's not to say that you can't be a gay teacher. You can. I don't care. Just don't teach your sexuality. My kids don't need to know that. It's okay. Like, I really don't even care if they know that you're gay, but you shouldn't be getting into no details with them at all. At all. Like, I don't care about you or your genitals, but if you bring my kids into it, we got a problem. If you're trying to put your genitals on my kids, we got a wood chipper problem. And I say that, and I mean that from the bottom of my soul. I do. Because I can tell you what happens to those kids. I can tell you. what happens to those kids. I can tell you how their minds work. I can. I see it. It kills me. I see it. I'm out in public and I see kids showing the signs of being me. Being me. And that scares the shit out of me. My kids didn't go nowhere. Nowhere. All right. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. That is some wisdom that more people need to take to heart as well, myself included. I finally dug my way out of debt, and then I got right back in it. And now I'm trying to lug my way back out of it. And if I ever get debt free again, that is a wrap. I won't even have a credit card. I promise you that. Oh, because when that money is owed, you know it, and it's like it's a weight on your soul. Even if you're paying it, you still know that you got to pay it next month. So it's a weight on your soul. And if you can do anything without taking on debt, then do it. Because like that includes buying a house, but that is one of the most difficult things. Buying a house is one of the only acceptable forms of debt. A car is a little iffy because that's an investment that you're making in transportation to be able to do a thing that helps make money, and there's a return on investment there, but you're still borrowing money to do it. Try to save and buy a used car first. It's better. It really is better to not borrow anything from anyone. He who sows injustice will reap disaster, and the rod of his fury will be destroyed. A generous man will be blessed, for he shares his bread with the poor. Drive out the mocker, and conflict will depart. Even quarreling and insults will cease. This is another one that we really need to take to heart, because what happened during President Trump's presidency, as far as the media, and by media I include movies, TVs, music, all of it. What happened was horrible. It was a tragic misrepresentation of everything the man said, everything the man did. And it was quite disturbing. And that was these people right here. That is the mockers, right? The quarrelers, the insulters. These people are negative, and they want us all to be negative with them. They don't want any positive growth. They don't want any upward movement. They want them to move up and you to stay down. And they want to make sure that you don't ever feel like you're worth getting up. That's why they mock you. He who loves a pure heart and gracious lips will have the king for a friend. The Lord's eyes watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of the faithless. The slacker says, there is a lion outside. I will be slain in the streets. In the mouth of an adulteress is a deep pit. He who is under the wrath of the Lord will fall into it. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. This is another thing that we really need to take heart. All of it needs to be taken heart, but these points need to be driven home, especially this stuff about the kids. We have failed as a society to raise responsible children. Like, I can take part blame in that. Like, I have great kids. I really do. I have kids and we have broken generational curses, but I worry because one of my children doesn't have the work ethic that I do, and that worries me. It doesn't mean that she's bad or any of that. It just worries me that she's not going to provide for herself in the way that I would like her to provide for herself. And that worries me, and I pray about that. And part of that is me not being the disciplinarian that I probably needed to be. Because I had such harsh discipline growing up. Like, the sexual thing was one thing, but like, I had physical abuse. My mom run with bikers, right? And there was abuse there. And then she met this guy, and he seemed like a nice guy. And then they got in a wreck, and he wound up in a wheelchair. And then every time me or my brother would walk by, he'd slap us in the back of the head. what is not like, every time. Anytime we got within arm's reach. And then that built a resentment for anybody in that space, right? And then she met my current stepfather, and he's a strict man. He was raised very strictly. He was raised uh, in a very foundational church. I'm not going to name which one, but a foundational church, and they were very strict about things and very disciplinarian about things. And so was he, and to the point where at one point CPS was called, and scared children didn't say things, and there was a lot of anger and resentment that went around for everybody because of CPS being called. It was a really not a great situation. Like there was not a whole lot of really great situations in my life, and the discipline, the lack of discipline, or the too much discipline, is the same problem. But I didn't grow up foolish because I got my ass beat. So I didn't do a lot of the stupid shit that we see today. And I know I'm cussing in a Bible study. Somebody's gonna get mad, but like this is just me talking to y'all about what I'm reading out of the Bible. I read this and I see this, like this is what is in my head. This is how I see it. Now we're gonna run through the 30 sayings, and we're already at 30 minutes, so we're gonna try and do this rather quickly. A lot of this has already been hit, but these sayings, like if you read through these sayings and you meditate on each one of them, like do it for a month. Take a month. We got 30 days next month. Take 30 days and one a day. Go through these sayings and just meditate on what it's trying to tell you. Most of them are short, but all of them hold wisdom that we need to incorporate into our daily lives. Saying number 1. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your mind to my knowledge. For it is pleasing when you keep them within you, and they are constantly on your lips, so that your trust may be in the Lord. I instruct you today, yes, you. Have I not written for you 30 sayings about counsel and knowledge, to show you true and reliable words, that you may soundly answer those who sent you? Do not rob a poor man because he is poor, and do not crush the afflicted at the gate. For the Lord will take up their case and plunder those who rob them. This is the law of cause and reaction. Like this is a fundamental law of physics explained in Proverbs. This is cause and effect. This is if you do this, this will happen. It is real. This is the real laws of the universe. It may take a long time for those things to catch up to you, but the laptops come out. The information gets verified. The names on the flight list get checked. And those things have consequences. Sometimes those consequences take a while. Sometimes those consequences are not here in this flesh suit, but on a spiritual level. But you will answer for your actions. You better have gotten right with God. Like, we've talked about it before, and we'll wrap it up at the end. Do not make friends with an angry man, and do not associate with a hot-tempered man, or you may learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. This is my whole life, right? These sayings right here are the trials that I've gone through. Like, it applies to life. These aren't just random things that somebody made up just because. These are things that are real. He spent time contemplating these things. I've spent time contemplating these things. Do not be the one who gives pledges, who puts up security for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should your bed be taken from under you? Don't, neither a debtor nor a borrower be. Like it's the same thing. Do you see a man skilled in his word? He will be stationed in the presence of kings. He will not stand before obscure men. If you take the time and put in the diligence to your craft and become excellent at what you do, you will be honored for that. That is a law. Sometimes it may seem like it doesn't happen. It may seem like it takes forever. But if you do your job diligently, and when I say diligently, I mean it. I don't mean the bare minimum that you do to not get fired. That is not diligence. Diligence is, what can I do to maximize for my employer my employment? Ain't nobody wants to hear that, I promise you. But if you're sitting slack and idle, then you are wasting that man's money. And I say man, it could be a woman, it could be a corporation. But if you are sitting slack and idle and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you're wasting that person's money. You're stealing from them. That's tough to hear. That's really tough to live. I was always that guy. Like, I did construction. If we didn't have work to do, send me to the house, boss. I ain't gonna sit around and suck up the cash. I'm not gonna do it. I'll go find a job where they can work me. I'll work my ass off me. Or I used to. 70 hours a week wasn't nothing. That wasn't nothing. So, uh, true riches. And when you sit down to dine with a ruler, consider carefully what is set before you, and put a knife to your throat if you possess a great appetite. Do not crave his delicacies, for that food is deceptive. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Be wise enough to restrain yourself. When you glance at wealth, it disappears, for it makes wings for itself and flies like an eagle to the sky. This is going to go into saying none, but because we're here, we're going to go ahead and talk about it. This is talking about not just the temptations of food, right? This is a deeper spiritual meaning. When you sit down with those in power, be careful that you do not become like those in power. It is almost impossible to become someone in a position of power ethically, honestly, and morally, especially in this day and age. You would think it would be the opposite, because God does reward those who are ethical and honest and methodical and do the things that he says. But he doesn't reward them with power. He rewards them with joy. He rewards them with happiness. He rewards them with a fulfilling life. The people who seek the power are people who have no fulfillment in their life. Their purpose is to lord over others because they were put down most of the time. If you find a bully, it's because they were put down and they want to push back against that. These people in power, like if you look at the current situation, who we have in power now, and not just the person, but the party and the way that they purport themselves, the way that they act. When you sit down for dinner at the table with these people, are you buying what they're offering? Like, they're putting down a platter of acceptance, right? But on that platter of acceptance is the meat, and the meat is transsexuals in kindergarten, because they're fighting hard for that shit. And the meat is a broken home with no family, right? No father in the family, because a father figure can do so much to improve everything for a kid. On the meat is to pursue money beyond all things, have no loyalty to anyone, to give your word and then to break it. That is the things that when you sit down with these people, they are selling to you. Because you know that the things that they're saying is a lie. And that is both sides of the table. Like, the thing I liked about Trump, the thing I liked most about him was that he pissed off both sides. Like, everybody on both sides got mad. And I was like, well, he must be doing something right. Because both sides are these people that you have to be really careful when you sit down to eat with them. Pick your food wisely. Be very careful what you drink, because they are trying to take advantage of you. These people in power are bullies. Almost all of them, even the good ones. Saying 9. Now, this is where it breaks off into a little bit different form of wisdom in the same manner of speaking. Did not eat the bread of a stingy man, and did not crave his delicacies, for he is keeping track inwardly, counting the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but with his heart is not with you, and you will vomit up what little bit you've eaten and waste your pleasant words. This is the deception, right? This is what DMX was talking about when he was talking uh, in the Damien bits. He is talking about the bread of a stingy man. He is talking about the delicacies that you crave that are your utter destruction. He is talking about the person keeping track, inwardly counting the cost. I thought you were my dog, but it's not. He's just playing you like a dog. Right here in Proverbs, y'all. That's the DMX lyric right there. Do not speak to a fool, for he will despise the wisdom of your words. There is no truer statement ever been uttered. I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. You will never take the advice. You will never take good advice. You'll never ask for advice from somebody who gives good advice. Like, you go to the people who's going to tell you what you want to hear, right? Most of the time. Like, yes, sometimes you will. If you know that it's really important, but like if it's something that you want to do, you're not going to go ask your mama. You're going to go ask your homeboy. And you're like, hey, bro, what you think? And you go, oh, yeah, bro, that's a great idea. Right? Be careful about that. Oh, because when you're wise and when you're telling somebody, like I've had people in my life ask me for advice. Like straight up ask me, hey, bro, what do you think? And I tell them. And they do the opposite because they don't want to hear what's real. And then it blows up in their faces. Like every time, if you ever ask me a question, I'm going to ask you, do you really want to hear the answer? Because I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you don't want to hear the answer, then don't ask me the question. My kids learned that early. But like even my friends, like if you don't want to hear the answer, then that's cool. And if you don't take my advice, that's still cool. We still gonna be friends. But don't be surprised if I laugh a little bit. Like I told you not to do that. That was a bad idea. Do not move an ancient boundary strong or encroach on the fields of the fatherless. For their Redeemer is strong, he will take up their case against you. This is talking about property rights. This is talking about do not take away from those who cannot defend themselves. Apply your heart to instruction and your ears to words of knowledge. This is an important one right here. Let me get a fresh sip of water for this one because of my throat. Do not withhold discipline from a child. Although you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Strike him with a rod, and you will deliver his soul from Sheol, which is hell, right? Which is eternal damnation, which is eternal separation from God, however you want to interpret that. Do not withhold discipline from a child. That is an absolute truth. You should always discipline your children. That does not always mean strike them with a rod. We had a system that we used, right? I devised this system before my children were born. I devised this system when I was getting beaten as a child. So the first thing I do is correct the action. If a child misbehaves, the very first thing you do is let them know this was not right. And this is why this is not right, even from an early age. The next time that it happens, then you take a minor disciplinary action. You smack them on the hand and tell them, no, don't touch that. Or you remove them from the situation and you say, no, you can't do that. And you explain again why. The why is very important. Trust me. And then the next time you increase that discipline and with the separation. But separation and timeout is not always enough. And if you have to do timeout more than twice for the same offense, then it's time to whoop some ass. I held a rule in my house that I would never whoop my kids with anything other than my hand because I know what amount of force I am placing with this hand. When you add leverage into it, it becomes a whole different level of force. If I'm swinging a board, the impact at the end of that board is not the same as it would be with my hand because I know what my hand needs to be. I never whip my kids with anything other than my hand, but I did whip them. I did not whip them anywhere except on their butt, but I did whip them. And they always knew why. Always. Before it happened, And after it happened, we had discussions about it. And I never had repeat offenses like other people do. Now, we didn't always get to the point where I had to whip my kids. It got to the point where I could tell them, and they knew that if they did it again, they were going to get a whipping. And that I was not going to whip them bad, and I'm not going to whip them in a state of fury or anger or any of that. I'm going to whip them with intention. And they know that. They know that the reason I am doing it is to instruct them in the way that is right. I did that. That was an intentional choice on my part. And I did that throughout their entire lives. To the point where now I don't have to whip my kids. I haven't had to whip my kids in a very long time. I haven't had to put my hands on my kids since they were really small at all. And I never put my hands on my kids. I can say that. My kids never got to see that. I'm blessed. My son, if your heart is wise, my own heart will indeed rejoice. My innermost being will rejoice when your lips speak what is right. That is a lesson that you need to teach your children as well. That you have to speak what is right, regardless of the consequences of that. I do that here a lot. I do that in my life. Regardless of who gets mad at me, you're going to hear it. If I don't say anything, that is the most compliant I'm going to be. So if you're talking about something and I think you're dumb, I'm going to hold my tongue unless you make me. And if you make me, then I am going to destroy you calmly with facts. Because a wise heart is a source of joy. It is okay to be wrong, but it is not okay to be intentionally wrong and to remain that way. You have to teach your children to do the right thing, to say the right thing, to always stand for the right thing. I guarantee you that you will not be able to say anything racist in my household. My dad learned that. And other people have too. Like, you don't get to be racist around my kids. You don't get to be many things that society thinks is okay around my kids, because I have taught them the ways that are right. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but to always continue in the fear of the Lord, for surely there is a future and your hope will not be cut off. It is really easy to get caught up when we're looking at the Will Smiths of the world and the things that they have, to think that they have it made, but then you see a breakdown, like what happened on the stage the other night. That was sad. Like, that's what that was sad, because he wasn't mad at Brock for that. He was mad at Jada for other things. He was mad at the inability to control his own life, so he lashed out. He was laughing at the joke until he saw her. Like, the whole situation was like just completely childish, but it was a wonderful distraction. Don't let your heart envy these people. They do not live happy lives. The happiest people are the simplest ones. People that are living their life doing something that they love, even if it's farming. Like, and I'm not talking about the industrial farming, even though people do love that. But like just a small home farm, like right across the street over here, we got these people, they raise cows. And it's a family deal. They all live on the property, and they're just as happy as can be, just living right there, content in their life. They ain't trying to be these celebrities and envying these people with all the power. They're just doing their thing, raising their cows, and they're happy about it. Listen, my son, and be wise, and guide your heart on the right course. Do not join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and drowsiness will clothe them in rags. I had somebody ask me yesterday about pharmacopoeia, because I talk about pharmacopoeia a lot. And they asked me specifically about marijuana and pharmacopoeia. Here's the thing, right? Pharmacopoeia is dealing greatly with the artificial extension of life through chemical means. It is the distillation and the processing of and the changing of the molecules and the different things in the medicines. If you can throw a seed on the ground and it can grow up and you can pick it and use it, it is yours. It is given to you as a birthright by God Himself in the first book of the Bible. Now, your misuse of that is up to you. Poppy, the poppy plant produces opium. Opium, like you can take poppy and use it in an almost pure form as a pain reliever, and it is wonderful. It helps people. But if you refine it, even in a pure form, it can be addictive. But once you get to the point of refining it, then yes, you're refining the pain relieving chemicals, right? But you are also refining the addictive properties associated with that. Because people love dopamine. It's a chemical, right? It's produced by happiness and pleasure and all of these things that are great in life. And one of those things is pain relief. So when you take the pill, it pops off dopamine in your brain, and you're like, "Oh, I want some more of that shit." And then you get addicted. Addiction, here we go. Somebody's about to get mad, but addiction is not a disease. Addiction is a choice that you make every time you use it. It is coming from an addict. It isn't not, it's not a disease. You were not born that way. You can be predisposed to lean that way because of genetics or the way you were raised. But it is not a disease. There is no cure for it. There is no pill you can take and get over it. It is a conscious will. It is a choice that you make. You have to make that tough choice every damn time. It was hard to put powder down, but I did it. It was hard to put ecstasy down, but I did it. It was hard to do these things, but it was a choice that I had to make. It was not a disease. It was not something that just afflicted me and then I have no choice but to die of it. That is a disease. AIDS is a disease. Cancer is a disease. Addiction is not a disease. Addiction is a choice. Choose better. And that's coming from an addict. And I'm saying that with the most love I can. I am brutally honest with people. That's what I do. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Invest in truth and never sell it. Invest in truth and never sell it. In wisdom and instruction and understanding. The father of a righteous man will greatly rejoice, and he who fathers a wise son will delight in him. May your father and mother be glad, and may she who gave you birth rejoice. My son, give me your heart. Let your eyes delight in my ways. For a prostitute is a deep pit, and an adulteress is a narrow well. Like a robber, she lies in wait and multiplies the faithless among men. I don't know that in the modern day and age that this terminology would have been the best. But then it was probably means about the same. And a prostitute is a deep pit. You can fall in. And an adulteress is a narrow well. It will lead you to destruction. Oh, this is wisdom. Like, there's nothing really to say about that. It says it itself. That is truth. Like, let when you find your delight in the ways of the Lord, it really changes who you fundamentally are. I get happy now because people make it. Like, I don't get happy because people fall. Like, I got that Elden Ring, that was funny because I've been there. But like he progressed. And that's funny stuff, but like just watching people get hurt is not funny to me anymore. It used to be. I used to laugh at that, but now I'm like, no. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has needless wounds? And who has bloodshot eyes? Those who linger over wine, who go to taste mixed drinks. Do not gaze at wine while it is red, when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake and stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things, and your mind will utter perversities. You will be like one sleeping on the high seas, or lying on the top of a mast. As someone who has been across the world twice on one of the, not this particular, like I was on an actual warship. I've been around the world twice on a ship. Being at sea and being drunk sometimes can be a little bit the same. They stuck me, but I feel no pain. They beat me, but I do not know it. And when can I wake up? To search for another drink. Do not envy. Do not envy wicked men or their company, for their hearts devise violence and their lips declare trouble. Do not envy wicked men or desire their company. Do not desire to hang around people who are wicked. That's a tough one, especially in our society, because we idolize that. We idolize toughness. We idolize wickedness. If you can't pick up an album and not hear about drugs, sex, or violence, you can't turn on the TV and not see drugs, sex, or violence. You can't go to the movies. Like there's nothing you can't drive down the road and see a sign. You can't go all the way through Baton Rouge and not see a sign dealing with drugs, sex, or violence. I promise you that. By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with every precious and beautiful treasure. A wise man is strong, and a man of knowledge enhances his strength. Only with sound guidance should you wage war, and victories lie in a multitude of counselors. Surround yourself with what you want to be. Right? If you have a multitude of counselors, what are they telling you? If your group right now, the people that you hang out with right now, are not trying to help you build a better life for you and them, then get rid of them. Like, give them a chance, by all means. Be like, hey, I'm changing focus in my life to being better. Not great, not good, better. And because of that, I'm wanting to surround myself with people who want to make themselves better. Like, have an honest conversation with people. Tell them, this is going to be different. I am not the person I was. And it's because of that, I want to see us all go up. I want to see us all rise together. Be honest about that. But if they're not on board with change, like if you're living a life where you're drinking every day, or you're staying stoned all the time, or you're not getting things done because of it, like that is idolatry. And chances are your friends are right there with you. And if they're right there with you, if they're not trying to get out of that with you, then leave them there. Make the effort to get them out, but if they won't come, you can't make them. And you have to change your life. And sometimes that means leaving your friends. I had a homeboy that I'd have killed people for. He would have done the same thing for me. Like, if he'd have rolled up to my house 20 years ago and been like, hey, we need to ride, we'd have rode. Bet. I had to cut him completely out of my life because he didn't want nothing different out of his life. I hate that. That was my boy. Like, that was my boy. But I had to cut that completely out of my life because I wouldn't let my boy be raised around that. Wouldn't let my daughter be raised around that. So I had to make that change. Be willing to make that change. Surround yourself with a multitude of counselors, but make sure that they are giving you wise information. Because wisdom is too high for a fool. He does not open his mouth in the meeting place. He who plots evil will be called a schemer, and a foolish scheme is a sin, and a mocker is detestable to men. We see that a lot in the current era. Like, there's a dopamine hit that gets triggered, right? Whenever these people are snarky on social media, whenever they make that asshole joke, that one thing that gets all the comments and the likes, and they did it by being a complete dick. You see it a lot by people that I've had on this channel. You see it a lot by people that I've not had on this channel. But it is a pervasive thing in our culture to just dig on people. Like, I used to be just as guilty as everybody. And I'm still one of those people that likes to mock. I work on it. I'm better now than I used to be, but I still catch myself on occasion, because I do. Uh, Nobody is perfect, but if you're living a life where you're scheming all the time, like, it's foolish to think that doing the same dumb thing is going to change anything, right? Like, you're not going to get any better by making the same schemes that didn't work for you last time. You're not going to get any better by flipping the same dope that didn't get you out of it last time. Quit plotting evil. If you faint in the day of distress, how small is your strength? Rescue those being led away to death and restrain those stumbling towards the slaughter. If you say, "Behold, we did not know about this," does not he who weighs hearts consider it? Does not one who guards your life know? And will he not repay a man according to his deeds? I've talked about this one right here before. Not in these words, but I have talked about this before, because you are held accountable by the knowledge that you have. I've talked about that, right? That's what he is saying right here. If you say, "Behold, we did not know about this," but you really did, then the one who weighs your hearts knows that and considers it. The one who guards your life knows that and considers it. So if you're allowing something that you know is unjust to happen, you are complicit in that unjust. Here's a tough one for you, right? If you know that your boss is screwing over a customer, you are complicit in that. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? But if you faint in the day of distress, if you know that something is wrong and you wither away from it, rather than rising to it, then he knows. Like, if you see somebody being berated and you don't step in to help them, then he knows that. Nobody else has to know that. You can go to your grave, you can see it through your window, see your neighbor doing it, and be like, "Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that. Guilty. My neighbor over here, I'm like, he gets drunk, he gets belligerent with his mama. He never put his hands on her, but he hollers at her. And, like, I don't like it, but I don't get involved in other people's mess. Does that make me? It makes me less. It does. I try to minister to him. I try and talk to him when he's sober. But he's a little bit out there sometimes. But I do try. Not in the moment, though. Maybe that's what I need to knock his block off, because sometimes that strength is required too. Eat honey, my son, for it is good, and the honeycomb is sweet to your taste. Know therefore that wisdom is sweet to your soul, and if you find it, there is a future for you, and your hope will never be cut off. Do not lie in wait, O wicked man, near the dwelling of the righteous. Do not destroy his resting place. For though a righteous man may fall 7 times, he still gets up. But the wicked stumble in bad times. You're going to get knocked down if you're trying to walk the walk. That is a promise from God himself. God himself tells you that. You will be stricken. If you try to walk for him, the enemy is going to come for you like you would not believe. Things that you would not even believe are true or possible will happen to you, and you will just be completely dumbfounded by it. Hold to your faith, because God will walk you through it. But if you do make the decision, it is not an easy one. If it is an easy one, then you're not committed yet. A lot of these people, like I say this a lot of people that have said the sinner's prayer will never see. Like, I don't hold the same vision of eternity as other people. I believe that when we go to heaven, it is a reunification with God. We become one with him again. I don't believe that we will be in bodies in a physical heaven. I don't. I know the arguments. I know somebody's mad. I know somebody's saying, "How can you be talking about the Bible?" But in this point in time, there was no concept of heaven. like not as we see it today. That came along later. So I think that until you learn your lessons, that you are separated from God, that we live somewhat through hell right now. I do believe that there is. I don't want to say that there is an eternal damnation because I believe that there is an eternal separation until you learn the lessons. And therefore you are eternally damned. This is not a pleasant experience. It is not fire and brimstone. Life is not a pleasant thing. If you've listened this far, you've heard that for me, life was not a pleasant thing. For a lot of people, it was not a pleasant thing. Not everybody had all of the things that I went through as a child, but a lot of people had some of the things that I went through as a child. I commiserate with y'all because of that. I know what it's like to be raped. I know what it's like to be molested. I know what it's like to be a predator. I know what it's like to be prey. I know what it's like to be a victim. I know what it's like to be a bully. I know what it's like to be a drug addict. And I know what it's like to be recovered. Like, I know all of these things and I try to share them with you. I am trying to share the wisdom that I have learned. And you can take it or leave it. You don't have to, like, I never want anybody to idolize me. I want y'all to, like, of course I want you to sub to my channel. Of course I want you to listen to me. It's because I think I'm bringing some value. If I didn't think I was bringing some value, I would not be here. I am that guy. Like, I'm not chasing fame with this. God knows I'm not going to get famous. YouTube will ban me long before that. The other platforms aren't really, like, there's a little bit of traction there, but it's not really, but that's okay. I'm reaching who I need to reach. God's getting it where it needs to go. And I'm okay with that. All right, let's get through these last ones. Do not gloat when your enemy falls. Oh, this is a tough one. We're going to talk a little bit more about a little bit of my testimony real quick. Do not let your heart rejoice when he stumbles, or the Lord will see and disapprove and turn his wrath away from him. In 2016, here in South Louisiana, we had a flood. At the time, I owned a trailer, and we were renting the land that it was on. And we were blessed. Something like 95% of the state was affected by this. Well, the southern half of the state anyway. Most of the northern part, they got a little bit of water, but it wasn't like what we got down here. We got a 1,000-year event down here. We got water in places that had never seen standing water. We got places that were on top of hills that went underwater. And we were blessed because I live in a flood zone. My entire city is a flood zone. And the trailer we were in, the water stopped 3 inches below the trailer. Right after that, the guy who owned the trailer park sold the trailer. And the guy who bought it was a pastor from central Louisiana named Brett Willanson. I have no problem putting his name out there. But he's a pastor and he's a slumlord. And he decided that what he was going to do at our trailer park was to turn it into an old folks place. He wanted to buy these trailers, mark them up to a great degree, and sell them to elderly people at a high interest rate with a buy here, mortgage, finance here situation. He was wanting to take severe advantage of old people. And me and my wife and my 2 children were too young to live in this trailer park. Well, we were flat broke. The housing market is completely destroyed. Like, completely destroyed. There was nothing available in the entire area. He came to us the day before Thanksgiving to give us the notice that the eviction would be coming. He came to us Christmas Eve with the eviction notice. We fought him in court, and we wound up, well, the clerk of court. We fought him in the clerk of court's office. We wound up losing, and we wound up having to move our trailer on short notice. We had to get a fly-by-night company because we were going through a severe crisis in South Louisiana, and there was nobody available to move our trailer, and we had 10 days. So we called these people, and they got our trailer stuck. Right? They went to move it, and the trailer listed 80 degrees. I shit you not. Like, it was sitting like this instead of this. And it sat there for 3 days before we could finally get somebody to pull it out, and we got it moved, and then we couldn't get it blocked up. And I'm telling you this story so that you know, like, That was the point in my life where this hit me. That was the point in my life where I learned that I needed to pray for the people who were doing me wrong actively in my life. That was the day that I prayed for Brett Malonzo. Because despite the fact that he left me homeless, we were homeless for 6 months. We lived on the charity of others for 6 months. I drove my kids 60 miles a day so they could go to school. We were living in a trailer when it had electricity and there was no phone, there was no internet, there was no nothing. There was no cell phone reception out where we were, but we had a roof and I could drive 60 miles a day to bring my kids back and forth. And that's the day I started praying for my enemies. That's the day I started praying, was when God provided for me in my time of need, despite what was going on, and He told me to do that. That's the day I started praying for these people that are going for our destruction. Because if you gloat when an enemy falls, or you rejoice when he stumbles, then God will see that and He will know where your heart is. That is why I backed off of the FJB stuff to a great degree, even though I greatly agree with the sentiment. I tried not to do a whole lot of that. I pray for Joe Biden by name every day that he has been in office, and I pray that he remains in office for the rest of his term. I pray for the people who are bringing the destruction of my country that I love so dearly. I pray for them every day. I can't pray for them all by name, but I pray for them as a group every single day that they come to the light and they know better. Because we are told to not fret over evildoers and do not be envious of the wicked. For the evil man has no future, and the lamp of the wicked will be extinguished. And I'm going to bring this home in a second, but my son, fear the Lord and the king, and do not associate with the rebellious, for they will bring sudden destruction, and who knows what ruin they can bring. I'm not going to get into the rest of the chapter. It goes on for a short ways. Brett Malone's song. We're going to bring this home, and then we're going to wrap it up with a prayer. So if you're interested, stick around. Brett Malone's song kicked us out. We wound up living homeless, and it was a tough time. It was a very tough time. The first time I sang in the storm was the first time I prayed for my enemies. I prayed for him. And what happened was, he went and bought 32 trailers to put on the property that he had bought so that he could sell it for this program at this markup with this high interest rate. And he bought the wrong trailers. And I try really hard to not rejoice in that. But he bought the wrong trailers and he could not sell a single one of them. He could not rent them out to these old people on assistance because he bought the wrong trailers. Instead of 3/4 inch sheetrock, it had 1/2 inch sheetrock, and therefore every single one of them was useless to him. He is still today, 5 years later, trying to rent them trailers out. Now I really try not to rejoice in that. I do. I can't say that I make it all the time. I'm wanting to laugh right now because he really did my family dirty, and I really did pray for him. And God got what God needed to. He humbled that pastor in the way that that pastor needed to be humbled, and he humbled this man in the way that he needed to be humbled. Because I was proud of the fact that I owned my house. I was proud of the fact that I was living in a trailer that was falling apart. But I owned it and I didn't owe anybody anything. I now owe people money. But I have been blessed with a home. A secure home that has made it through storms and ice. That has made it through hail, made it through wind. I've been safe and secure in this home. My dogs have a yard to be in, and my kids have roots to draw upon here. They will remember this place as their home. I love that, and I thank God for that. I get emotional because I am honest with y'all. I'm raw with y'all, and I tell y'all Things that y'all probably don't even need to know sometimes. But I am blessed beyond measure. And it's because I listen to the things in these 30 sayings. When I tell you that I try to live this book, I really do. I do not succeed, but I talk to God every single day about where I fail and how I'm trying to be better. And that is all He wants from you. All He has ever required from you, ever, was your heart. There was never a ritual sacrifice required, but man demanded it, so God delivered it. And then there was never because there was never a need, He also brought an end to it. And the sacrifice of Christ was worthy because of that. It was never necessary, but it was needed, and I am blessed by it. I hope that you have been blessed a little bit by what I've shared with you here today about the Bible study that we have just had. I hope that this was an informative Bible study and not just something that you listen to and move on from. Incorporate this. Happiness and joy is a choice. It is not something that just falls upon you. And this book right here tells you how to find it. This is the instruction manual for life. It tells you how to preserve food and how to decide what to eat in the time when you don't know. Like if the world ends today and you don't know what to eat, in this book, it tells you how to determine that. It tells you how to determine which illnesses need to be treated and how to treat them. It teaches you that in this book. This book contains that knowledge. It tells you how to fix your diet. It tells you how to pray. It tells you how to meditate. It tells you about fasting. It tells you everything you need to know to be happy and successful in your life. I talk a lot of smack on this channel. I do. I enjoy things that are really worldly. I do. It's part of the flaw of man. It's something that I strive to overcome, and I will never do. I will never be a perfect man. Nobody ever will be a perfect man. But if you want to try, if you want to change your life, if you want to be a little bit different than you were yesterday, then what you need to do is ask for it. And that's all you have to do. You have to go and you say, God, I come to you as a sinner, and I ask you to forgive me. I ask for the grace that you have freely extended. I ask that you change my life to suit your purpose for it. I ask that you remove me as an obstacle from myself. And if you do that, if you really mean that, then God will step in and change you. But you have to do your end too. Like it is not oh, now I'm different. And you are different. And you recognize it. But you have to play into that. You have to feed that. This is the vitamins. This is the minerals. This is the carbon that your body needs to grow. I'm going to leave it there. I think this has been productive. I really do. I hope that I helped you today. Whoever you are watching, I hope that I helped. Take it to heart. I mean it. To the crew. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Till next time, this has been